many minutes do you have? Do you want?
10 minutes.
All right, please.
Mr. President, distinguished participants, my name is Engineer Myers Adore, FNSC. I was the secretary of the 25th Engineering Assembly that took place in Coren from 8th to 10th of August 2016. And I've been given the privilege of briefly reviewing the communique reached at that great assembly. Sorry, I'm having some problem from the technical people. It was an assembly that was well attended. We had the honor of the governor of Ondo State, Governor Mimiko, who chaired the assembly, and a number of very high-profile dignitaries. It was something unusual because the Engineering Assembly usually holds in Abuja, but that one was held in Akure, something outside the Federal Capital Territory. Now, we had some matters arising as discussed in the communique. So let's go on. Next slide, please. The essence of this review is to take us forward, to learn from mistakes of that assembly with a view to moving on the right path at this assembly, to be able to have some learning points. The theme of that assembly, please go back before the sub-theme. We had the theme of the assembly. Can you go back briefly? The theme of the assembly was embracing the future, improving the quality of engineering education and practice in Nigeria. Next. We had a number of sub-themes, among which was well, you are very familiar with those sub-themes. I won't bore you because I have only 15 minutes. I have only 10 minutes. So next. So tiny that I can't see all. I don't know where to go. Very tiny. And if I move from the microphone, can I take this? Can you give me? Please give me one. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry about these interruptions. We had a number of observations, and then from these observations, recommendations were made, and actions were required to be taken. The first, what again? Oh, yeah, be changing for me. Change for. No, I left it with them. No, yeah, please. I left it with them. Go back to the first slides. What is happening? Observation 2A, please. Hi. All right, the first observation. Federal government's anti-corruption war, which has led to the recovery of illicit funds. The Assembly deliberated on this exhaustively and came up with a recommendation that the federal government should invest the funds so recovered in the provision of critical infrastructural projects. The action taken is that the recommendation is being considered for action by the federal government. Attention of the federal government has been drawn to this recommendation, and we are told that the recommendation is receiving appropriate, adequate attention. Please move on. 3A. Another observation was the commissioning of Abuja-Kaduna rail track and the flagging of Abuja-Kaduna train services. This was well received by this assembly, and the recommendation of the assembly was that the government should rehabilitate or construct other rail lines in the country in line with the 25-year strategic railway master plan. We are all aware that the federal government is on this and has started very serious work, of course, with the completion of the Abuja rail line and the commencement of train services from Abuja to Kaduna. The fourth observation, the use of small and modern scale enterprises, SMEs, and the development oriented contemporary engineering is as a driver of the economic prosperity of nations of Southeast Asia and should be so in our country. The recommendation was that global experiences should be evaluated to intensify successful approaches and review the effectiveness of existing institutional framework and policies of SMEs with the aim of developing more effective and productive guidelines for value, hands-on, and experimental learning at levels of design, manufacturing, and modeling that are adaptable to our local environment. The recommendation is being considered for action, and the attention of government has been drawn to this by the government. 5A, by the federal government of Sir. 5A, observation. The continued dependence of Nigerian tertiary institutions on government for funding and subvention to run their academic and research activities. The Assembly discussed this extensively with contributions coming from those in the academia and others. And the recommendation was this, that Nigerian tertiary institutions were advised to open up income-generating strategy, other income-generating strategies, instead of depending on government for research and such other functions, and should look into the area of private-public partnership. The action taken is that the Council has directed the Committee of Deans of Engineering and Technology in Nigerian Universities, CODET, to urgently drive the initiative because this is happening in the university, and the Coren uses the codex as a very strong tool of linking with the universities, and the deans have also met and discussed this, and have keyed into it and are driving it with their respective universities. Next, please. The next observation is the role of technical education in human capital development and in the performance of the nation's economy through employment and wealth creation, increase in activities of technological innovations, and enhancement of living standards and promotion of social stability. The recommendation on this is that government should overhaul the technical and engineering education curriculum to reposition the network institutions for enhanced human capacity development, which will accelerate the economic development of the nation. The action is that Coren has actually hosted a stakeholders meeting. This meeting was held in May 2017, that is May this year. The meeting came up with a 5-year strategic plan on technical manpower shortage in Nigeria. The Council intends to embark on the adoption of a standard document called BMAS for accreditation of technical colleges and polytechnics in collaboration with MDT and the Committee of Polytechnics of Deans and Engineering, of Deans of Engineering and Technology of Polytechnics, COMPODET. And like the President also mentioned in his address and in various speeches today, a lot is being done by Coren to resuscitate the technical colleges towards this agenda. Next. The seventh observation on certified artisans trained under various apprenticeship systems in Nigeria are swelling up the ranks of wasted and underutilized economic resources. And their unregulated practice and services constitute a threat to life and property. This has to do with artisans that are untrained and are causing a lot of quackery in the system, in the engineering system. The coordination of national apprenticeship program in Nigeria, in line with global trends in education, training, retraining and development, have been recommended. Hence, the certification and registration of artisans for Coren. Government at all levels should initiate vocational and technical educational programs that will enable trainees to interface effectively with certified practicing artisans, craftsmen and technicians to develop the requisite technical knowledge, skill sets and competencies to drive the nation's economic and technological development. The absence of this has led to the influx of artisans from neighboring countries and preference for such expatriates and sometimes unqualified artisans from our neighboring countries. What is the action that has been taken? Coren has initiated and signed a memorandum of understanding with the National Commission for Colleges of Education, NCCE, in this regard to ensure urgent implementation of this recommendation. The MOU was signed this year. The eighth observation, the high cost of maintenance and equipment obsolescence are two major factors responsible for the under-capacity utilization of the state-owned refineries. This was exhaustively deliberated, and the recommendation was as follows: the promotion of the domestication of oil refining technology by encouraging research and development of modular and mini refineries to ameliorate the continuous shortage of petroleum products. And second of that is that there should be replication of A.B. Uzaria research efforts on the construction of mini refineries. This initiative should be extended to surrounding other engineering challenges in the country. That is, many of those infrastructural facilities should be encouraged. The action taken, the Council has commenced action in this directive, which includes the discussion with relevant agencies in the oil industry, and with the intention of holding talks with those relevant agencies. Among the actions taken in this direction is the appointment of a consultant to get an inventory of all oil companies that are operating in Nigeria, with a view to having a reliable data preparatory to this talk. Please, next. Observation number 9, the level of development of a nation is directly linked to the state of our infrastructure, prominent among which is power supply. Based on the economic and environmental advantages inherent in the amount of gas for power generation, this discussion took place. And after that exhaustive discussion, the recommendation of the Assembly was to address the issues affecting gas supply, which is a major challenge limiting its use for power generation. This can be achieved by ensuring full implementation of the gas master plan. The action so far is at the attention of government. Since Coren cannot do anything about that, cannot start constructing or carrying out the gas plan, what the Council has done is to draw the attention of government to this very critical recommendation. And that is the action on that. This was also seriously discussed with the recommendation that government should provide an appropriate regulatory and technical framework for engaging local modular refinery operators for the purpose of curbing illegal refining, employment creation, promotion of operational safety and environmental health and conservation. The action taken, the attention of government has been drawn to this recommendation, and Council is following up on the same recommendation to see that steps are taken concretely by government, by the federal government, of course. Please, next. Number 11, external support from donor agencies for water supply situation still remains precarious, and the public sector has not been successful in meeting the water and sanitation needs of residential and commercial users in Nigeria. This is due to increased human population density, high rate of urbanization, relatively higher pace of industrialization, dilapidated facilities, and rise in water maintenance costs and droughts. The recommendation: government, and indeed government here refers to government at the appropriate level. Government should, as a matter of priority, increase the funding for skilled manpower, provision of municipal and rural water infrastructure, effective planning and management of water distribution strategies. The action taken, the attention of government have been drawn to this recommendation as published in the communique and followed up by Coren. 12. The fast dwindling water resources in the Lake Chad Basin, and this was seriously discussed, and with the recommendation that action should be taken by the federal government in bilateral understanding and cooperation with other member states of the Lake Chad Basin Commission to recharge the fast shrinking lake, to facilitate the restoration of peace and economic prosperity in that region. And it was also recommended that the existence of existence of multipurpose dam in Ondo State, which is currently underutilized, should be addressed. The government of Ondo and Ekiti states to synergize and leverage on the existence of the facility for maximum utilization. The action taken. Work has commenced on this recommendation. The attention of the relevant governments has been drawn on this recommendation, and furthermore, the Benue River Basin Development Authorities will be urgently notified to utilize the facility for irrigation to ensure all-year farming under the present government's agenda for food security. I think almost getting to the last. Is that the 12th? Okay, 12. Observation number 13. The need for review of the Coren Act. The recommendation. Coren should make effort to ensure the review of the Act. And the action taken. Council has inaugurated a committee and work has commenced on the review of the Coren Act, Cap E11 of 2004, as evidenced on the next slide. You can see the next slide is very tiny, but the next slide shows how far the council has gone, that this amendment is already before the National Assembly. Excuse me. Next, after the slide, appreciation. Having gone through the communique from the 25th Engineering Assembly, it may be observed that some of the recommendations are rather vague, ambiguous somehow, and not directed. The actions required are hardly directed at any particular agency or persons. And as a result, very, very difficult to implement. It is therefore it is the recommendation of Council that subsequent communiques should, especially the 26th Engineering Assembly communique, should be more directed. It should be clear enough, and the recommendations should be directed at either persons or agencies, and specific actions to be taken should be there, so that when we report the 27th Engineering Assembly communique and actions taken, it will be clear to everybody that, and we can now, the Assembly can hold somebody or an agency responsible for implementation. In the meantime, I would like to thank you for your support and encouragement. Please never get tired of sharing your ideas with us. with the council, and it is my humble wish that at the end of this assembly, the community will be highly bankable and will be strong enough for easy implementation. Thank you all.
Standing, talking with
Professor Disable, please can you come now and present the communique? We just have 1 hour more. You guys will go and hide yourself when we are finished. Why can't you be proactive? How can you be proactive? Sit down there and listen, forget it. Came for a job. We are doing so much. Don't need to go to Mr. President, sir.
We are having some challenges with the people down there. Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wonderful experience from Monday till now. What the communique drafting committee has just done is a draft, and we will welcome contributions from members here, whether now or later. When the communique is finally adopted, every one of us here will have a copy and be able to contribute to it. You will permit me to read part of what we have and skip where necessary. So this is the communique, the draft communique issued at the end of the Coren 26th Engineering Assembly, held at the Abuja International Conference Center, Federal Capital City, Abuja, Nigeria, Monday 7th to Wednesday 9th August 2017. The theme of the assembly was entrepreneurship and manufacturing in Nigeria, challenges and opportunities for a better future. The Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria held its engineering assembly at the ICC here in Abuja between 7th to 9th of August. Really and truly, to situate and discuss within an appropriate body of knowledge and practice, the theme that was adopted, as I said earlier on, was entrepreneurship and manufacturing in Nigeria, challenges and opportunities for a better future. We had the special guest of honor, the acting president, His Excellency Prof. Yemi Osibanjo, GCFR, who was ably represented by the Minister of Science and Tech, His Excellency Dr. Chief Obunaya Onu. Other dignitaries that were here are listed on the screen. you will permit me not to list each one of them. Can we scroll down, please? The sub-themes for the assembly were dealt with by 7 presenters. The lead speaker, Engineer Titi Omoetu, talked to us on digital empowerment agenda for businesses in traditional engineering disciplines in Nigeria. From entrepreneur and services provider to manufacturer, lessons and experiences of BG Technical Limited was presented by Engineer Onoha Geoffrey Chiamaka. The challenges and possible solutions in the railway transportation in Nigeria. Paper was written by the DG of Nigerian Railway Corporation, Engineer Freeborn Ohiara, and was presented to us by Engineer Austin Ogwai. Facilitating and promoting industrial growth in Nigeria, the role of SMEDAN was presented by Engineer Abu Ozigi. Women entrepreneurship, setting agenda for the future, was presented by Engineer Mrs. Odua Ayela Agboneni. Maintaining entrepreneurial and industrial standards in Nigeria, a paper written by the DG of Standards Organization of Nigeria, Mr. Osita Abonoma, was presented by Mrs. Oluremi Ayeni. Regulating the engineering profession was presented by the Registrar of Coren, Engineer Wopa Kamila. This morning, we had 2 presentations, one on concepts and contents, the rehabilitation of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, by Julius Baja. That was presented by Engineer Mustafa Ali. And lastly, the presentation of the concrete meat design, which was done yesterday. The highlights were actually presented this morning by Professor Oko. The 26th Engineering Assembly, you will all agree with me, was well attended. And as far as we know, we have not had any incidences. About 4,500, not complete because as at the time we are producing this, we have not gotten the exact number. As at yesterday, we recorded 4,500 participants. Observations and recommendations. At the end of the 26th Engineering Assembly, the following observations and recommendations were made. The first is that the Assembly applauded the federal government of Nigeria for the approval of the policy guidelines for Federal Executive Council, ministries, departments, and agencies on the planning and execution of projects, programs, and contracts that have science, engineering, and technology components, and call for issuance of the requisite executive order and the implementation of the in the interest of meaningful national development. Secondly, the Assembly noted the launch of the outcome-based education benchmark for engineering programs in Nigerian universities by Coren. The presentation of its template to the Washington Accord in line with international standards and best practices, and the consequent recognition of the Council's efforts in accreditation by invitation to carry out accreditation exercises in European institutions, with the most recent invitation coming from Cyprus, is commended, or is commendable rather, please. Thirdly, the Assembly observed that the review of the current BMAS to reflect outcome-based curriculum will give students early start in engineering life and also improve their mobility across the globe. The Assembly supports Coren in this regard as it strives to actualize the mandate for which it was set up. Number 4, the Assembly noted with delight the efforts of Coren on the review of the Coren Act to make it more encompassing and to reflect the current realities of the present situation in Nigeria. The Assembly recommends that the menace of building collapse and failure of engineering infrastructure could be ameliorated through stricter legislation, regulation, and control mechanism throughout the project development lifecycle. In the event of an infrastructural failure, appropriate sanctions should be meted out to perpetrators of the breaches of standard, order, and procedures, and relevant codes of engineering practice in engineering projects to serve as deterrents. Number 5, the efforts of Coren in the vanguard of resuscitation of technical education in Nigeria is highly commendable, particularly on the 5-year draft strategic plan on technical manpower shortage in Nigeria. Number 6, the Assembly noted the progress made in the rehabilitation of the rail mode of transportation in Nigeria and its challenges. The Assembly recommends the repeal of the Railway Act of 1955 to promote private sector participation in rail business. This will create opportunities for short and medium terms investment in that sector. Number 7, the Assembly noted with chagrin the federal government that the federal government is set to import 45,000 tons of railway track into Nigeria from China, in spite of the nation's huge iron ore deposit. This move has demonstrated a disregard to the nation's local content policy. The Assembly recommends that Coren should make stringent efforts to draw the attention of government to the possibility of producing half the number of the rail tracks earmarked for importation from the Ajaokuta Steel Complex in line with the nation's local content policy. Number 8, inasmuch as the Assembly recognizes the laudable and envisioned objectives of the 2014 Nigerian Industrial Development Plan in driving the process of job creation, economic and revenue diversification, import substitution, export diversification, and broaden the government tax base, it is lamentable that not much can be said to have been achieved to date. The Assembly recommends the full implementation of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Policy to maximize in-country value retention and addition and enforce the utilization of Nigerian goods and services as a catalyst for industrialization of the Nigerian economy. Number 9, the Assembly also observes that activities of many startup engineering businesses, especially for women entrepreneurs, are in rare need of adequate mentoring and funding. It therefore recommended that government should provide incentives that encourage engineering entrepreneurs, here called engineers and technopreneurs, to risk attempting new and innovative ventures. Hence, more opening for funding and venture partnerships from banks, especially from the Bank of Industry. We had hoped they will be here so that they can answer this, but I'm sure at the end of the day we'll be able to get through to them. Bank of Industry and other funding agencies should be made easily accessible for prospective engineers and technopreneurs to unleash their full potentials. Number 10, the Assembly notes that entrepreneurship is essential for job creation and economic growth. It also wished to stress the significance of engineering products and services, standardization for the purpose of product fitness and durability, protection of public safety and environmental health, better product utilization, promoting transfer of technology, and removal of trade barriers. The Assembly recommends that the drive to create jobs and wealth for the economy should of necessity conform with requisite copyright and patenting laws, and product and trade standardization benchmarks to promote export and global competitiveness of the products and services provided by indigenous engineers and technopreneurs. The Assembly also recommends that the exportation of raw materials without undergoing value addition should be discouraged. 11, the Assembly observes that the Nigerian content policy is key to driving entrepreneurship and manufacturing. Entrepreneurship and manufacturing activities geared towards the resuscitation and revamping of the Nigerian economy. The Assembly lauds the implementation of the One Local Government, One Product program of SMIDAN through the provision of machinery support to micro-enterprise. The Assembly notes that this program, as a bottom regional economic development model, has demonstrated the capacity to mobilize local people to translate naturally available resources of rural communities into value-added economic activities. Number 12, the Assembly commends Coren for the presentation of the new concrete mix design manual, the first of its type as a nation for practitioners in Nigeria. It recommended its circulation for use. The Assembly recognizes the role of ICT as a driver for business or businesses and an effective tool for learning and productivity. It therefore recommends the consistent and sustainable digital empowerment agenda for growing big businesses in traditional engineering disciplines. It also recommended digital empowerment for growing engineering businesses. The Assembly commended the leadership of Coren for their spirited effort in promotion of engineering practice without borders. And in conclusion, the participants commended the efforts of Coren for organizing this thought-provoking assembly. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that is the draft. You will realize that what was discussed at the later part during the family meeting was not properly captured here. That is what my other colleagues are trying to do there. We will actually infuse it into this, and then every member can have a copy. But meanwhile, I'll entertain a few contributions to the draft communique before I take my leave. Contributions. No contributions? That's strange. Thank you very much, Mr. President, sir. We have done our job, and there seem to be no contributions. Do I give you this one?
I'd like to thank you very much for a job well done. I think
we'll get you a better copy, just for the purpose.
There are some names we can do down.
Yes, sir.
Well,
thank you, sir.
Any announcements? Otherwise, it is now my announcement. Come now. What time is the dinner? On dinner again.
Mr. President, distinguished participants, the announcement that we have is that we dispatch now and get ready to attend the dinner coming up in this same venue at 7 p.m. For you to attend, the admission is the tag, and with this you exchange your dinner ticket. So please kindly, and this tag admits only one person. And for those who already collected or paid for their spouses to come along with them, their spouses have been given the same tag. So please come into the dinner with the tag. It is with this that you will change your dinner ticket. You will be served with the ticket in exchange of the dinner ticket with the caterer. So please endeavor to come along with it. Thank you. We will not allow payment at the gate. There's no more payment for dinner. So if you come with money, we will not take it. So please endeavor to come with a tag. Thank you.
On that note, it's now my honor and privilege to bring the 26th Coren General Assembly to a close. See you at dinner.